Hey, hello, hello. Welcome to your daily dose of alignment. So, today we're going to be exploring this really interesting topic of that nothing brings out the best in someone than your attention to it. And on the flip side, nothing brings out the worst in someone than your attention to it. So I think you probably have some concept of what I'm talking about, and the reason we're going to really deep dive into this is that I have noticed so many times for myself the power of this understanding, of putting this into practice. It is the simplest thing, and it's almost like magic when it works. And I know that the people watching this and the people that are following this alignment journey, these are the kind of techniques that once we start incorporating in our lives make such a difference. So I'm Kylie Ansett. I am the alignment whisperer to the wild ones, the weird ones, the wonderful ones. That's you. And I'm coming to you from beautiful Sydney, Australia. Okay, so what is this all about? Nothing brings out the best in someone than your attention to it. Have you ever noticed that when you really... another way to put this is people live up to our expectations. So if you've ever noticed that you kind of, I guess another way of putting it would be that we are just, whatever we're expecting is going to happen, does happen. Now, I was working with a client recently, and she was remembering a situation that she'd been in where this particular woman, it was like a business situation, and this woman was very negative and was bringing everyone else down, and nobody enjoyed having her there. And it was a business conference where they had to go every day, and so every day that she was going, she was kind of dreading being around the energy of this other woman. Now that went on for about a week, and then this happened, I think when we were talking about it was like several months ago. And when she brought back to mind the conference that she'd been on, the whole thing was colored by her interaction with this woman, or by this woman's energy, which she felt had really commandeered and kind of taken over the whole experience. So now when she thought about the conference, instead of thinking about the things that she learned, or instead of thinking about anything else that had happened, it was all colored by this one particular, not the person that was really getting up her nose. Now, I could totally relate, because, oh my God, how many times have I been in that situation where that one person that kind of just presses your buttons, it becomes the main takeaway from an experience that you have. And of course, we blame that person. And it was funny because when I was working with this client sort of on this topic to see how we could move through it, she was trying to kind of logically explain away this woman's negative energy. She said, oh, this has happened in her life and she's going through that. So, I can kind of understand why she's got that outlook. And she was trying to talk herself into excusing this woman's behavior. But here's the key, and this is kind of where the shift can happen. It's really hard to excuse someone's behavior logically and have that really on a energetic, vibrational level actually be a change in the way you feel. So if you're holding somebody else responsible for how you feel about anything, no matter what it is, then it's almost a situation where you're bound to be disappointed. You're bound to be left standing high and dry. You're bound to be let down. And that's because if you think that your peace of mind, your enjoyment of a conference, the way that you experience something is dependent upon someone else behaving in a particular way or not behaving in a particular way, well, it's definitely a hard road that you're traveling, because how can we possibly control all external circumstances? How can we make sure that everyone on the road is as sensible a driver and as good a driver as we are? How can we make sure that all of our relatives are as considerate and as thoughtful as we want them to be? You know, how can we do that? And it's pretty much impossible. So this is the key here, is to take that interaction and understand that that other person that you're interacting with has absolutely nothing to do with your experience of the situation. Now, this is a big shift, but it applies to every aspect of your life. And if you get your head around it, then it is profound. Let me tell you, it is absolutely profound. So let's bring this into the kind of here and now. So if nothing brings out the best in another than your attention to it, and nothing brings out the worst in another than your attention to it, then how does that even work? Because surely these people are doing their good things or their bad things independent of you. But this is where the shift happens. It's your perception of what is happening that makes the difference. It's your ability to own and be responsible for your own experience that changes everything. So when I was working with this client, the shift that we spoke about was, okay, let's say this was a situation that had already happened. So she was still recreating it in her mind whenever she thought about it. Let's say that this woman, instead of being the symbol for kind of ruining that course, and instead of every time she thought about this this conference, it was flavored by a kind of a negative vibe that she had attached to this woman. What about if the way she saw that woman was what I was calling a practice person? So what do I mean by that? So a practice person is someone who comes into your life who maybe gives you a challenging scenario, but they're not someone that you care deeply about. Now, when it's our partner that gives us a challenging scenario, or our child, or a close family member, or a close long-term friend that gives us a challenging scenario, when it's these people, there is so much momentum, there is so much old ground and kind of patterns, remembered patterns and habits that we're bringing to the interaction. And it's usually very emotionally charged. So it can be that much more challenging to step back and kind of look at this situation as, actually, it's my attention to the worst in them that is creating this worst in them situation. Whereas when you do it with a practice person, now this woman at the conference of my client was a perfect person for this, because she didn't mean anything to her. She wasn't a close friend. She was someone who she'll probably definitely never see again. And although she had a very strong immediate reaction to her in the negative, she was not someone that her opinion mattered in any deep way. There was no emotional baggage there. There was no old patterns there. So here's the thing. Here's the thing that is really powerful. When she now brings this conference to mind and immediately thinks about this woman, her opportunity here is to see this woman as, instead of the one who ruined the experience, seeing her as someone who actually is her practice person, because she can practice thinking differently about her, and then when her sister-in-law or her her ex-husband or whatever comes into her life, she's had some practice on this other practice person to put these techniques into place. So that's kind of the first way to change just what this woman represents. Then looking at, okay, so she was walking into this conference, and every time she was coming, she was thinking about the worst possible scenario with this other person. And nothing brings out the worst in someone than your attention to it. Now, when she's able to shift that and instead think about this person in a different way, and we talked about it for a while, and I said, was there anything that this woman did or said that you could attach something positive to? And she remembered one or two things that she had done. I think she was an animal lover, and she'd done something really kind to animals, and that was something that she'd shared at some point. So think about just that, nothing else that she's doing, just that one thing. And then that becomes the association that you have with this person. So it really is a small technique practiced multiple times. And what we so often do is the opposite. We look at people in our lives who are our trigger us in one way or the other, and we put so much attention on what we don't like about them that we actually are just attracting more and more of that. When there is one tiny little positive thing that you can start putting attention on, even if it's something ridiculous and almost meaningless, it is incredibly powerful. Now, I did this recently with someone that I had been there'd been some past history, and we'd kind of grown apart, but I knew that we were going to be coming back into each other's lives, and every time I thought about this person, these negative interactions that we'd had, the words that were said kept coming to mind. So I made up a phrase that was focusing on one aspect of this person that I definitely admired and thought, that really warmed my heart when I thought about it. And it was just a short little phrase, and every single time this person came to mind, I just repeated that phrase and repeated that phrase just once or twice, and then I'd kind of go on about my day. And then, later in the day, the thought of that person would come up, and immediately all the angst and the stress about the situation that had developed, and then I'd say that phrase and kind of stamp it out, wipe it out. And I just did that for a couple of days. And it was quite interesting. I mean, how can we say whether these things are coincidences or not? But what happened was something that had been kind of, I don't know, not like had been uncomfortable for 4 or 5 or 6 weeks. Within 48 hours of my doing that, it shifted completely, did a 180. Now, I had already let go of the angst. I wasn't sure if the other person had, and I guess I hadn't sort of broached it. I was just doing it in my mind on my own. Like it was not an interaction with them. It was just on my own. But the shift in energy happened instantly, and the person actually approached me, and everything had changed, let's say. Now, you know, of course you could put that down to coincidence. How would you ever know? But the point is that it made the transition very easy for me because I had already spent a little bit of time focusing on the best in this person. So I'd already laid that groundwork, and I know that the reason that this person approached me when they did then, rather than 48 hours earlier or not at all, was because I had put that groundwork in place. So I'm going to encourage you to do the same. Now, it is really simple. First of all, it is about looking for, trying it on a practice person first. If you can find a practice person that you have, you know, it might be the secretary in the doctor's office, or the, you know, the woman at the mail office, I don't know, whatever. Basically someone that doesn't have a lot of emotional charge with you, but still is pushing your buttons. So try it with them, and then try it with the people that you've got more of a pattern in place. And you will be amazed at the shift and the transformation that happens, and how quickly it happens, how seamlessly it happens. And the more you do this, the easier it gets. That is my experience, and it's been the experience of the people that I've worked with on these interesting situations. So what do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. I always enjoy hearing what you have to say. Thank you for your time and your energy and playing with me in this space as we build and live a life of purpose on purpose. Bye.